Hello, and welcome to the Victorious Living Christian Counseling Podcast. My name is Crystal Ridlin, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Indiana, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Missouri. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the rapid decline in fellowship. One of the things that has been a real concern for me for many years now. I'm talking probably 5 or 10 years that I've seen a drastic decline in fellowship within the church. This has just been heart wrenching for me and many other Christians and believers who are noticing this. And I know that this has to be heart wrenching for God because He does not. God is not quiet about the importance of fellowshipping in His Word. So, one thing I've seen is we live in a culture that's so busy. It's keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. Just have to be rushed, busy, and people aren't making time for other people. And this is just really sad. It's hard to find friends. We actually moved to a new city in August, and it has been so hard to move to a new city anyway. But during a pandemic, it's really been a transition. And it's hard for me to see like how much of what we're experiencing is due to the pandemic and how much of it is just because I've heard that the town that we're living in tends to be pretty cliquish anyway. But I'm also seeing that people just don't really thrive on relationships. They're not, they thrive on relationships, but they're not actively pursuing relationships, or they have, a very small amount of people that they're hanging out with, and they're not being very inviting of the people around them. This is a common problem that we have in most churches. I'm not going to say all churches, but in most churches. So one thing that my husband and I went to Europe, not this past summer, but the summer before. And the European culture, at least where we were in Croatia, and then we also went to Austria. But one of the things that I noticed about the European culture is in America, we live to work. But in the European culture, they work to live, but they live. I saw people who would meet up for dinner, they would meet for coffee, and they would just sit for hours and have coffee and talk. And relationship was so important to the Europeans. And they would have like special spots that were known as the meetup spot so that you could meet your friend in these particular places. And when I came back to America and saw like how sad it was that we as a culture aren't engaging with other people in the same way, it was a culture shock for me to come back. And there was a part of me that I wanted to stay in Europe forever because relationships are cherished and important, more important in that culture. So fellowship is so important. In Hebrews 10:25 actually says, "Let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of His return is drawing near." I've heard many people say that we're nearing the end times. I don't know. I'm not a prophecy, like, I don't get all into those. I believe in prophecy, but I'm not here to say that I have some prophetic message. I can see that our world is in a really difficult place. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of natural disasters. But either way, every day is closer to the day of Jesus' return. And so I think that it's so important to remember that if God says 12,440 times he mentions the word fellowship or fellowshipping, it's something we need to take seriously. June Hunt, who was actually on my podcast before this one, she is someone I truly admire. She's my hero in this world. She's just an amazing woman of God. And one thing that she always says, and she mentioned it on the previous podcast on domestic violence and spiritual abuse, she talks about how we have three basic needs. They're needs, they're not desires. They're things that God has instilled inside of each of us. They are the need to feel loved, the need to feel like we belong, and the need to feel safe and secure. So these are not wants. They're things that we absolutely need in our culture, in our lives, in our hearts. And it's the one thing that we're really pushing out. A lot of our communication is happening on social media. Friends, there has been studies that has talked about how social media is negatively impacting individual people. That it actually is making people more lonely, more depressed. So it gives this like feeling that you're communicating and interacting, but it actually leaves you more empty. So I don't know, try it. Spend a little bit of time on Facebook because you can easily get caught up in it. And just kind of check in with yourself. How do I feel after spending an hour, 2 hours scrolling through Facebook? My guess is you're going to be like, I kind of feel lonely. I kind of feel not so good about myself because everybody posts all their great stuff on Facebook, right? So we're comparing ourselves to people's best and we know our worst. So we have this issue. Another thing that I want to bring up is since the pandemic has hit, churches have been drastically impacted. And my husband actually told me this tonight. He said there's been some numbers released about the drastic decline in church attendance since COVID. And so I kind of looked it up, and what I came up with is 1 in 3 practicing Christians have completely stopped attending church since the pandemic. Friends, we're talking 1 in 3. That is a lot of people. And that means that we're not really fellowshipping with one another. Yes, there is sermons online. That's so important. I'm so thankful for that. But we're forsaking fellowshipping with one another. And I'm a counselor, and I see every day the impact that this is having on people. Trust me, it is having a drastic impact on people. The suicide rates have skyrocketed. Homicide rates are skyrocketing. Anxiety, depression, counselors can't keep up with the demand of people who are hurting. I literally have to send people away because I don't have the ability to help everybody that's contacting me. And that makes me really sad because I want to be able to be in a position where I can lead people to the hope of Jesus. And I'm limited. And the churches, a lot of them are shutting their doors. They're not actively using this as an opportunity. This is the church's time to shine. Yes, we want to be cautious. Yes, we want to put forth, things to protect people. But the fact is, people are hurting now more than ever in our history. And very few of the churches are practicing and operating in a place where people can go to the church and find the hope of Jesus. So let's not use this pandemic as an excuse to stop working, to stop being disciples for Jesus. This is a time we need to be, I'm seeing sometimes 35 people a week. That's a crazy amount that means 35 face-to-face hours with clients. They say that usually you double your hours to I'm probably not able to do that, like with notes and calling and emailing and all this other stuff that comes with being a counselor. I'm probably working a good 50 hours a week trying to meet the need of the hurting people. And a lot of pastors aren't even going into the office now. They're just staying at home. I'm not dissing on there's a lot of counselors who are doing the same thing. A lot of us are using this as an opportunity to take a long break. And what we really need to be doing is, if it's virtually, we need to be discipling with people virtually. Whatever we can, we need to be trying to reach people, because this is a really, really hard time for people. Fellowship is essential to our spiritual well-being, to our physical well-being, and to our emotional well-being. So friends, I noticed this after I moved to a new city, and it was several months in, and I was struggling because I didn't have any friends here. I have some really good friends from home, from my hometown that I moved from. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up contacting a mentor of mine that I went to church with. And I said, hey, I really need a Bible study. Would you like to do a Bible study with me? So her and I started doing a Bible study, just the two of us, virtually. And then we slowly invited several other people. And that has helped tremendously. I also got involved in Bible Study Fellowship, which is local. And so I've been able to meet a few local people. And this has fed my soul in ways that I can't even explain. And it's all virtual. I wish it was in person, but right now, like, there's very few women's Bible studies that are actually meeting in person. And so because of that, I've just found what I could, because my soul was needing that fellowship. I am a people person, and I was feeling that emptiness, that void. So, friends, this is the message. Fellowship is an essential element to our overall well being. If we're not fellowshipping with other believers, we're not thriving. We're just working and going through the motions every day. I had somebody today say, I know that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and it's going to be the very same thing. And I'm hopeless because of it. And I've heard that many, many, many times. Through this pandemic, we're living this mundaneness. We've got to step out of the mundane. We've got to make time to really enjoy life, to talk to a neighbor, even if it's, we keep our 6 feet outside, whatever it is, but we need to be engaging a relationship, not just, messaging somebody on Facebook, but literally engaging with people, because this is how God created us. He created us to be relational. He created us to be in fellowship with one another. Okay. So this is the message that I really want to share to you today is, friends, don't allow the pandemic to pull you down. It doesn't have to. There's ways to be cautious, but still live. So meet with a friend for coffee. Talk to a neighbor on the street. Go out of your comfort zone and say, hello, my name is Crystal, and I just moved to town. How are you? That sounds scary today. I know, but it used to be, I remember like sitting while my grandma or my mom or people that these older adults and they would just talk to people they didn't even know for long periods of time. And I remember being like, you don't even know them. Why are you talking to them? That was common when I was a child, even when I was a teenager. And now it's almost unheard of for people to really get into conversations with people they don't know. It's like taboo or something. So, friends, do not, I says, let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. The other thing is, if you know of somebody who's elderly, who is locked in, who is living alone, these are the people that are really susceptible right now. and they need our encouragement, and they need to know that they're seen, that they're cared for. Drop them a note, give them a call, and let's see what we can do, Christians, to make this world a better place. It has to start with you, and it has to start with me. And what happens is, and what I've seen, when we love somebody, it has a ripple effect. And then they want to go and love somebody. And then they go and love somebody. We can make the world a better place. I'm all of a sudden thinking about we are the world, we are the children. Anyway, sorry, sometimes I just break out into random song. But that's the song of the day. And I want you to think about, let's make the world a better place, which was the message of that song. And that's all I have to say today. Friends, fellowship with others. Call a friend. Say, hey, let's go for a walk and let's chat. I want you to make a commitment this week to go out of your way 3 times to intentionally engage with 3 different people, whether it's a phone call, not a social media act, because we can all do that. Phone call, let's go on a walk, let's meet, do something, and let's see how you feel in a week. I did this before COVID hit. I ended up taking a social media break and decided that I was going to try to meet with at least 1 friend a week for coffee. And sometimes I would meet 2, sometimes 3, but I always at least met with 1. After a month of doing this, I felt so much more fulfilled, so much more at ease, so much less anxiety, and was literally living joyfully. So make a commitment, spend some time with people, and let's see if we can get those basic human needs that God has instilled in us met in a healthy way. Blessings.